So on one side, we have Pushkar from Tremis Capital. Now, Tremis Capital is a company which helps startups, find the next funding, next fuel for the next growth stage, right? It's including just not just generic tech startups, but also D2C brands, helping them with their exit, right? And on the side, we have Chirag, who is probably one of the oldest D2C founder I have ever met, right from the Reddit days, right? And Chirag runs a D2C business called MBOSS, and he will throw some light on the entire from his entire journey as a D2C founder, right? Right from the stage where there was no exit options apart from running a brand to now multiple options and probably more confusing now, right? Confusing scenario, right? So let's start with Chirag, because D2C founder, right? So we always interested in the D2C founder landscape, right? Um, so Chirag, without going into the complexities, probably a quick intro on what prompted you to jump from Walmart, it's like Bharati Retail, right? One of the biggest, uh, at that point of time, one of the biggest e-retailer, right? One of the earlier entrants, to a D2C foundership. And what was your options at that point of time? And what did you see as a vision?
So when I joined Walmart after MBA, I always had an urge to do something in a startup. So even when I joined Walmart, it was a startup. They just gone launched 2-3 stores, and they were going to launch another 100 stores. So I got a lot of startup experience there, and then I always wanted to start something on my own. And at that time, a lot of the bags and luggage market was dominated by leather products. We were able to get synthetic leather products in, which is ethical fashion and at a much better price point. And at exactly the same time, the e-commerce boom in India started. So it was a no-brainer actually at that time to get into the bandwagon, get a national level market exposure, and really do wonders. So we were lucky to be at the right place at the right time, and that gave me the confidence to quit Walmart and start a business on my own. And we've been lucky to be part of the bandwagon.
But at that point of time, did you ever think about this new kind of exit which is available for the D2C founders? Sell their brand, create some liquidity and probably
Oh,
start a new
not,
brand.
not in our dreams, man. This is a scenario which has evolved over the last 6, 8 to my once to 1 year. And I'm telling you now, the options that are available to us as D2C founders are fantastic. Matlab, there are brands who are there are investors who are looking to buy brands right away, outright. There are investors who are telling you, you stay with us for 5 years. You participate in the growth. You do get some cash upfront, but you also keep some equity. And as we grow together, you'll get more and more and more value for your equity. If you're able to do 5x sales in 5 years, you'll get the valuation at that. So I think this is an evolving scenario, a fantastic scenario for D2C founders that way. Superb scenario.
And as a D2C founder, how do you see this exit option? I mean, you
So
welcome it with both hands or some apprehension, or you're not sure about it at all?
So it depends on the overall scenario. If you are able to fund your business, bootstrap your way, and keep growing, let's say at least 50% to 2x a year, I think as a D2C founder, you don't need to really get into this option right now. But if you have the dream of getting into something much bigger, you want to grow 10x in 5 years, and then you also will have the option of the liquidity. So it's a phenomenal option that way. It will
Okay.
depend on your scenario, but if your brand is scalable, I think taking this option gives you the option of working with an investor for 2-3 years who will grow the brand 10 times. The sheer learning out of that will be phenomenal, plus the liquidity you will get. And then you can start something again on your own. That is the key of entrepreneurship, or the urge of entrepreneurship, which is the fun part of it. So I think it's a
Right.
super opportunity that way.
I can relate to it. I've worked with multiple startups over these many years, right? So I can always feel that after a couple of years working on a particular project, then you sort of, get used to it. Everything is just a normal grunt. Then you really don't have that fun which you had when you initially were bootstrapping and building the ship, right? So I can completely, relate to that Kida which you are mentioning. So just to summarize what you said is that if your brand is growing in the initial stages of growth and you're growing like 1x 2x times, then probably not, and you have the kind of money to grow that brand, then you don't probably want to do it. But at a stage where the growth is very at a epitome, and now for the further stage of growth, you need funds, you need more support, more teams. That is when you should really look at probably joining an aggregator, right? um, that's what you said, isn't it?
Yes, the skill set you require to grow a brand from 0 to 10 crores or 5 crores or 20 crores is different from the skill that you require to take it from the 10 crore to 100 crores. So वो game अगर खेलना है, then taking part in this whole Thrasio model is a no-brainer.
Oh, come on, you stole the moment. I was going to introduce the Thrasio moment from the Pushkar's Pearls of Wisdom, right? So I generally call the Thrasio model is something which I've first come across in Pushkar's LinkedIn post, which I call the Pearls of Wisdom by Pushkar, right? And so Pushkar coined and has written elaborately about it. That's where the idea came to me that why don't we do an event around it, right, as well? So, Pushkar, coming to you, man. So how do you validate what, a D2C founder, Chirag, mentioned about it as the option when to take this option, and would you want to add something further to it?
So I totally agree with what Chirag said. Like the expertise and the capital it takes to scale a brand to say 10 crore is totally different from what it takes to take it to scale up to 100 crores. So if you're someone who already has created a brand, you're at 4-5 crore revenue, I think you're at a crossroad. You can grow it by yourself, take like 2 years to take it to 10-15 crores and then decide to sell it, or sell it upfront and then take it to 50 crores in 2-3 years. The
Right.
option is yours. The
So as
advantage
an
of
sorry, my bad.
no, I was just saying the advantage of selling is you also get some money upfront. So, for example, if you want to buy a house or if you want some liquidity, it's a good idea to sell maybe a majority of your brand and then keep growing it with the aggregator. What you need to keep in mind is any aggregator who buys your brand will eventually like to acquire the entire thing. So you can't
Mhm.
say, I just want to continue at 49% forever. So the time window you have is maybe 4 years or at best 5 years. Most aggregators prefer to acquire you over 2-3 years. That's enough for you to hand over the brand, hand over the team, logistics,
Mhm.
suppliers to the buyer. But sometimes aggregators also allow you to maybe keep some equity for up to 5 years. So that, say, for example, you sold a brand at 5 crores, and in 5 years it became 100 crores. So you have
Wow.
some will be quite big, quite lucrative. So these are few structures you should keep in mind. Decide how scalable your brand is, and then decide what structure you want to go with. You want to sell everything upfront, or you want to sell it in a staggered way over 4-5 years.
This is something you haven't shared on your post on LinkedIn at all. I mean, you're withholding information, Pushkar. This is not fair. This is very interesting, actually.
You've been reading all my posts.
Yeah, man, every day morning regularly. You see, it's like
Okay,
Bible right
yeah.
nowadays for me. The analytics which you share is pretty awesome. And in a layman language, I'm not a finance background guy, and I'm trying hard to understand it. I still cannot figure out how a ledger works in that place. So for me, the layman language which you follow is pretty amazing. So
I think Doulos, we have a question. Can you just take it, or maybe she
all
can
right,
just write it? Or
yeah.
should we take questions towards the end? What's better?
We should take questions towards the end. If it's relevant, we can always address it. Like, I guess they might have missed the initial introduction. So, folks, a reset again. We want to, in interest of time, what we have done is that we have structured into two segments. First segment is discussion, second is question answer, right? You can send your questions right away on the chat. Instead of raising hand, you can actually do that right away on the chat. And what we can do is that if it's relevant to what we're discussing right now, we will be more than happy to take up that question, right? Pushkar and Chirag, you can decide onto yourself and you can let me know, right? And if it's not relevant at that particular point of time, we'll try to address it at the end. And if we still cannot address it because of the time limitation, then we will try to address everything in a post and then share it with you guys later on, right? Thanks, folks. So just drop it in the chat, please, if you have any questions, right? So we are already at about 70 odd folks, and I guess the room is going to get, uh, you know, uh, filled up pretty soon. We are trying to live stream it. I'm not sure that's working or not. Anyways, we'll figure that later. We have a question. Uh, okay, so you want to take this up right now, Pushkar? Thought aggregators like Mensa, etc., take
There is one
compulsorily.
relevant question we can answer. So
Yeah,
Anurag is asking, aggregators like Mensa take 100%. So that's correct, Anurag. They always take 100%, but then you can sell 100% in a staggered way. So you don't need to sell 100% on day zero. Say, for example, you sell 50 or 51%, you have to sell at least 51% on day zero. Then you can sell 20, 20, and 10% over next 3 years. So what happens is the future, like the future equity that stays with the company, with, say, for example, the remaining 20%, that will be evaluated at the future revenue. So that if you can grow the company at a really high pace and the company becomes 5x in 3 years, the remaining you'll get a much higher value for the remaining 10%. or whatever is
And
left at the end of 3 years.
just to follow up on that, sorry, Pushkar, sorry to break in. So I mean, once like a aggregator buys about 51% from you, right? Uh, then they will put all their weight behind you, right, to grow the brand. So the growth perspective, like I'm from the growth part, so I'm very curious, right? You will get the team, the structure, and everything in place, right? So the growth aspect, the prospects of growth is much more higher, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I would also like Chirag's opinion on this, like as a bootstrap brand, how difficult it is to get the access of capital. I'm sure most founders face this query. Like, for example, you always short on cash. You can't hire the best people. You can't get the best logistics solutions. You don't have enough money to spend on digital marketing. The advantage of selling your brand to one of these big aggregators is your capital problems are solved. Now, these guys have raised so much capital that the idea behind is that you use a part of that capital to scale up the brand, to acquire brands, and use the remaining capital to scale the brands. For example, they have their best people on digital marketing, logistics, supply chain, sourcing. So then the advantages are massive if you decide to go that way. My opinion is you won't be short of capital as long as you are with the brand. They'll ensure that you don't have to go to the bank to get debt because you already have tied up debt lines. The debt you'll get will be much cheaper than what you'll be able to get through your own network. So these are big advantages, and I think the capital is biggest of them. But Chirag, I would love your opinion on this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think one of the biggest difference between when you work with these fresher investors is they have a very different vision for the brand. They are acquiring you at X and they are targeting to take it to 10X in 5 years. So they'll do growth hacking at several levels, right from increasing ad spends to maybe having you on more marketplaces. Some of them will also ask you to sell abroad, and they have the infrastructure to do that and to help you, which as a small team of D2C founders you may not have. So, so I think that whole setup itself is built in a way that it will accelerate the brand 50, 60%, 100%. तो मतलब कहीं नहीं गया. It's a given, and beyond that depends on the product. कितना opportunity है. This मतलब scale up is almost a given now if you are part of this kind of a setup.
All right, very interesting. So, Chirag, just a quick follow-up on that, what you said, right? See, I have worked on a D2C business a couple of years back, and we were a profitable business, but we had to shut it down after a while because the profits are not enough to fuel our ambition, fuel the growth, right? Did you face this problem? You've been a long time D2C, founder, and you've been running this business for a long time. I mean, I think 2012 is when you started, if I'm not wrong, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so that's a long time, right? Over 9 years. So have you faced this problem, and has that anyways affected your growth pattern? Like you try to grow, but this is the only much you can grow. Had you had that kind of human manpower more than just the capital alone, would it have helped you?
So that is a challenge that every small business faces, every D2C founder faces because resources are limited when you're bootstrapping.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but at the same time, D2C is a superb space because then we are getting national level market coverage and payments come in 15, 20 days. So the cycle is not as long as the one of the B2B businesses. That has helped us a lot. But at the same time, the more you invest in inventory, the more you scale. So
Mm-hmm.
then getting money out of the business becomes a challenge.
Right.
And
Right.
that way, I feel if your business is continuously asking for more and more and more fuel to grow, then partnering and collaborating with one of these investors is a very sensible option for you.
Right. See, we have been getting a lot of questions, and I see that, we all see that. It's just that, we are trying to crux it all into one. I think during the later course, maybe I have some questions which relates to yours, so specifically on revenue and how much revenue you need. That's a thought which I had in my mind as well, which I'm going to ask to one of these people over here. So we'll address that. But I had a quick question for Pushkar, actually. Interestingly, our first question suggested a name called Mensa Brands, right? They are one of those aggregators, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the current D2C scenario? I mean, with you working at Tremis, and I know you have mandates from multiple aggregators, and you've been working with D2C founders on that. So maybe you can shed some light onto what are the different aggregators in the market, and probably a overview of what kind of industries are they targeting at.
That's correct. So we work with all the aggregators at Tremis. We help them acquire the best brands possible. Now, there are two things aggregators look at while acquiring a brand: industry and revenue. Now, every aggregator has a different investment thesis or acquisition thesis. For example, Mensa. Oh, Mensa is founded by Anant Narayanan, who is an ex-Myntra guy. The entire team is built around fashion. So if you're a fashion aggregator, if you're a fashion brand, Mensa is possibly the best guys to go to because they understand fashion really well. Now, I think like if you're selling, now coming to revenue, now if you're selling more than 10 crores every year or say annual revenue of a crore every month, all these aggregators would be interested because right now the idea is to acquire the biggest brands, grow their revenue and raise more capital. The more brands they acquire, the more revenue they can show in their books. That helps them raise more capital from VCs. So right now the race is to acquire bigger brands, not smaller brands. But eventually, as all the big brands will be sold out, they'll come down to acquiring sub 10 crore brands. Now, coming back to industry. So for example, if you're into fashion, Mensa is possibly the best guy to go to. If you're into fitness and lifestyle, you have Global Bees. You also have Upscalio who are really interested. If you're selling online furniture, Upscalio is a good aggregator. Also, for example, home and fitness, there is 10 Club and Global Bees. So broadly, except fashion, most of these aggregators do pretty much everything because everything falls under home, lifestyle, kitchen, and fitness. But there is a revenue criterion. So around 10 to 15 crore revenue, Goat Labs is the guy you should go to. But if you have revenue, say, of 50 crores, I think maybe Global Bees is the only guys who can acquire you. Of course, Mensa can do that, but then they're focusing on fashion. So except fashion, like say, for example, you're a lifestyle brand and you're selling 40, 50 crores every, or home and kitchen brand with 50 crores revenue every year. So Global Bees and Upscalio are the best guys. They're also smaller players like Evenflow, Powerhouse, who are looking at brands with 2, 3 crores revenue, under 5 crore revenue, I would say. They might not have reached out to you right now because they are still busy raising capital, figuring out their strategy. But even if you're selling, say, 2, 3 crores every year, and if you want to sell the brand, there are opportunities. It might not be Global Bees or Mensa, but there are players who are looking at 2, 3 crore brands.
Wow, interesting. Hey, quick happy news. The live stream is up, so I'm assuming that people can see it now. It took me a while to figure out how it works. LinkedIn makes everything complicated. So I'm assuming people who drop out and are unable to join back, you can always go and check the live stream. We will post on the Tremis Capital LinkedIn page, the link in a bit. In between the conversations. So, Pushkar, you mentioned about the entire D2C aggregator space a bit, right? We had this question which popped up again and again in the chat box, and which something which I have, I have in my mind as well. What is the kind of financials or what are the kind of metrics which a D2C startup should have or a D2C company should have to be, you know, ready to sell to an aggregator? What are they looking at, right? One. Second is, of course, should they sell it to an aggregator? Should they sell it to, let's say, a bigger company in that field? Let's say, probably like a Myntra, sell the brand to Myntra directly, or sell it to Mensa brands. So, these are the two questions which I have. Probably you can merge them. I don't know. You can take whichever one which makes sense to you first, and probably skip to the next one. And Chirag, I would also like to, your inputs in this in between, in terms of how. As a D2C founder, since you are working the fashion stage, you can probably relate much better. How is a D2C founder, which one makes sense and which one doesn't make sense, or what is just weigh in your thoughts in between?
So let's talk about a strategic investor first, someone like Myntra, because I'm sure Chirag would also have some views on that. So the advantage of selling to an aggregator is you get more operational freedom. Now, when you sell it to someone like a big buyer like Myntra, now Myntra's vision would be to acquire the brand on day zero. Maybe Myntra is not the right example because they are more like a platform. But say if you're a fashion brand and then you're selling yourself to a much bigger fashion label. Now the idea would be to acquire it on day zero, and then they would have a different vision. They might either want to integrate your brand into the existing brand, because most of these strategic investors of big brands, they're not trying to create a portfolio of brands. Whereas someone like Mensa, I think, Doulos, you're on mute.
Sorry, Manas, you'll have to mute yourself. I'm not sure how Manas is able to stream it. We had shut it off, but
I think
nevertheless,
it's
I guess
fine.
it's fine now. Can you
It's
please?
fine.
So I was just saying the advantage of selling to an aggregator is their vision is to create a portfolio of brands. Must think of much like a digital Procter and Gamble or digital HUL. So as a founder, you get a lot of operational freedom because you'll be running the brand for first 2, 3 years. There is no top boss sitting who will say, all right, I want to acquire this brand and merge it to my bigger brand. Because there is no bigger brand. They are just an aggregator which has maybe like 20, 30 different brands. So I think that's a big advantage to selling to an aggregator rather than going for a strategic investment, because here you have the operational freedom to grow your brand. It matches with the vision of the aggregator, whereas selling to a bigger brand, you'll become a part of that brand. Either they'll try to integrate your brand into the bigger brand, or maybe acquire your customers and shut down your brand. So you can't expect your brand to become a 100x or 50x brand in 10 years. But Chirag, I would love your views on this.
No, I agree. These aggregators and the investors are really working very well on scaling up the brand. They're not really closing down any of the brands they buy. They are making it 10x. So it is quite phenomenal that way. And addressing the question, Doulos, you asked about the key metrics which are important here. I think from whatever Pushkar will know much better, but I think EBITDA is the key metrics that these all investors are tracking. You got to be EBITDA positive. The brand has to be scalable. What they're looking at is to acquire you and make you 10x of what you are in 3 to 5 years. That story you have to be able to sell, and then I think you're set. Other than that, one of the basic things which a lot of people ignore, your IP, trademarks, copyright, everything should be in place so that it becomes a very smooth and seamless process when you get into the discussions with these people.
Dulos, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. It seems like Chirag, you've already started discussing a couple of, on aggregators. It seems like you have an experience in this field.
So,
You know,
I
you're
think
sort of,
talking
yeah.
to a lot of D2C founders as friends and as clients also, we've been trying to help them sell that through
Okay.
Tremis Capital, and that's how we've got the knowledge that we've got.
Pretty interesting, actually. Right. So, I guess that has addressing a lot of questions which came up in between, right? Regarding the kind of metrics. So, Pushkar, is there anything else that a founder should consider in terms of this metrics or do's which they have to have in place to be up for sales, to be up for being acquired by a aggregate? Anything else that you need to add, you want to add on, or is that all for the moment?
So Chirag mentioned two most critical things, scalability
Hmm.
and EBITDA positive. So
Hmm.
most of these aggregators are looking at brands who have at least 10% positive EBITDA. And it should be, I haven't seen many brands with more than 25% positive EBITDA in this country. So the
Hmm.
range is broadly that much, between 10 to 25%. If you're over 25%, they would be delighted to acquire you. But I think that's slightly difficult. Like there are more outliers. One in 100 brands would have an EBITDA more than 25%. And also, there's one more thing I would like to add is all these aggregators are looking to acquire online brands. So you might have an offline presence, like you might be selling through channel partners, or you
Hmm.
might have a small store, but at least 80-90% of your revenue should come through online, because their
Okay.
vision is to expand, like their vision is to make it big through online channels. Now, if you're
Hmm.
someone who has maybe a 50-50 split, that you're
Hmm.
selling 50% revenue online and 50% online, you're not
Hmm.
going to get, they still might acquire you, but you're not going to get the best value of it, because they're not
Right.
going to value offline business a lot. So this is something you should keep in mind.
Right. And but like Chirag mentioned, your trademarks and your IPs, right? That would also add some value into it, even if it's an offline business, right? I'm just curious.
Yeah, of course. So it should be, you should own the brand, you should own the trademark. Otherwise,
Hmm.
there's no deal, because they always buy the trademark. So even
So
when
it's
they
a
are buying out your company, the idea is to buy the trademark, idea is to buy the brand and its customers and its moat.
So what I understand from this conversation is that it's fairly complicated process, right? And it involves a lot of negotiation, right? I mean, you should
Right,
consider your
right.
IP, you should consider your trademarks, you should consider your patents and all this stuff, and then negotiate and negotiate and negotiate, right, to get the right value out of it. But what is a ballpark figure that a founder can expect? How much should they have in terms of their like EBITDA plus MRR or ARR? the average revenue, and what is the rough calculation? I know I've seen going through a post recently on that. So, we don't want to delve into it much deeper, but there are random figures, approximate figures, and how much can they expect out of it? Basic calculations, so that I'm sure there are a lot of founders who are considering this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have joined in today, and they could really, probably do a quick checklist. Hey, this is in the box or not.
So there is a broad range of EBITDA multiple. Say if you're a fashion brand, I think Mensa is possibly your best bet. The best multiple you can expect is 5x. Unless you are an amazing brand, they can go up to 6x of EBITDA. But
Okay.
that's still on the low side. Like say if you're into home and kitchen or fitness, companies like Global Bees or Upscalio are willing to go as high as 10x EBITDA, assuming you are a great brand, you have amazing reviews on Amazon. See, the idea is to find brands which are already established and grow them. They are not looking for brands that they'll have to spend money to establish. Say, for example, if you have an amazing customer base, if your retention ratio is quite high, your repeat purchases are high, they can go up to 10x. Now, it's not easy getting that 10x multiple. You'll have to negotiate really hard. So it takes time. You have to speak to multiple brands, understand their structure, how much you can take upfront, what kind of salary you can expect, what will be your involvement in 2, 3 years, 4 years. So as you said, it's a long process. Sorry, Chirag, I think you have a question on this.
No, so I think you're bang on. To the address what Doulos said a little while back, that it seems like a complicated process, but actually it is not, because today, believe it or not, this is a seller's market. These investors and aggregators have raised a lot of money. They are looking for good brands to acquire. Itna simple hai. You got to be positive EBITDA or up, then you negotiate your way out. It's not a challenge. And in that process, what I've seen with a lot of founders that I've been helping is, if you have someone like a Tremis Capital on your side as an advisor, बहुत सारे discussions easy हो जाते हैं. For example, I'll just give you a brief example. All of us do tax planning in our business, right? Even the big companies do tax planning. But those tax planning, it impacts your EBITDA when you're trying to sell your business. As Tremis Capital, we were able to communicate to the investor that this is XYZ is the tax planning which is done. And they added it back to the EBITDA, and the seller actually got much more value for his business through that. So itna complicated nahi hai, it's a seller's market. Obviously, having a professional on your side will help in fastening the process and getting you in touch with more and more investors.
Pushkar, you want to continue from that? Tax planning is something which you didn't tell about. Again, withholding information is not acceptable.
I think Chirag mentioned a very valid point. See, like Chirag said, it's a seller's market. So I am sure for any one of you, if you're doing more than 10 crores of revenue every year, someone would have approached you. Like you would have received some inbound queries, because there's a lot of capital in the market chasing good brands. But if you want to maximize your potential, say for example, if you want to go from 7x to 10x or 9x EBITDA multiple, I suggest either you go through a investment banker or advisor, or you spend a lot of time speaking to all the buyers, understanding their vision. Because there is one more thing you should keep in mind is you might get say 10x multiple right now, but whether that buyer is the right person for you, can they take your brand to 4x or 5x? Because a part of your upside is also tied up with your future revenue. You're not getting everything upfront. Say you get 60% upfront. Now the remaining 40% payoff will depend upon how much you can scale your brand. If you can scale it to 5x, even a 6x EBITDA multiple on day zero will make sense. But then you need to understand the strengths of the buyer, what kind of team do they have, and all this takes a lot of time. You'll have to spend a lot of time speaking to them, speaking to their team. And there I think, and also like Chirag mentioned on the tax side, so you have to convey exactly how much your EBITDA is, how you're calculating an EBITDA. So in these, my opinion is in such places, having a professional helps a lot to maximize your value. You can still sell your brand, but with a professional at helm, maybe you can get 1.5 times the value you would have otherwise got.
Right. So, now what I understood as a layman, right? I mean, you guys are like professionals working on the
You're not a layman, Doulos.
EBITDA and all this stuff, right? I'm just a marketer, right? So, what I understood from the discussion is so far is that, the gross profit which you get, the EBITDA, maybe or net profit, let's say, right? The net profit you get on an average, that's money which you end up making in the bank in a year, and you can get up to 10x. That is 10 times. So next 10 years revenue, the profit which I'm getting, I'll get in one shot. That's what you're saying, right? If I sell the company one, right, immediately, and probably I can just use it to buy a house or jump into a new new what do you call it, a new business or new concept because I'm bored with the old one. Essentially that is true with all founders. I've seen that. I've worked with so many founders, right? So that is one thing which I understood. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There is one suggestion I would just like to interrupt. So we just heard someone saying they would like to be added on a Slack channel or WhatsApp group. So can we do that? Is that possible?
Yeah, we can. What we can do is that see, this has been something which I've been talking to these guys, the Tremis guys as well for a long time, because I also work with Tremis in terms of helping the startups the next level of growth, and we have tremendous amount of people who are working with Tremis, right? I mean, the last discussion you had 150, 190 people coming in. This today we have over 200 people lined up, right? And all professionals with a vast amount of experience. I mean, it's always a good idea to share information, right? So we can actually set up the Slack channel and Slack community and moderate it and do it. Give us some time, we'll figure it out.
We'll do it and maybe post the link on a page so that
absolutely. So just follow Tremis Capital and definitely follow Pushkar, because pearls of wisdom, as I said. I mean, people who miss it.
Doulos for
Pushkar keeps writing on Tremis the pearls of wisdom, right? He keeps on sharing information every day, and it's like a must read, like New York Times if you read New York Times, or Mint in India, whatever it is.
Maybe we can just take a few more questions before we wrap up.
So I just wanted to just tie it to one of the questions. My is somebody who asked earlier. There's a question which he asked, and other people also reiterated the question, that what is the best way to have a strategic investor or get acquired by a strategic brand? I think Pushkar aptly shared the response, right? Because your sales is also tied up if you're doing it in a staked way, in a stacked way, that you're selling 60% right now, and then the 40% is over the next 2 years. I mean, your profitability or the money you're going to get is also dependent on the growth of the brand, right? So you will definitely consider a lot of stuff like what is the acquisition company's strengths are, how are they in this particular space where you're working in, all those things will be into consideration before selling it. So it's just as good as a strategic investor as well. I had one quick question in my mind. Pushkar, you still evaded my primary question. What is the kind of revenue which you should have? I mean, of course, EBITDA is a very important, as we have been stressing onto it, I understand. But what is kind of revenue you need to have annually to even be considered by these aggregators right now? And yeah.
So my point is, say if your annual revenue is less than 3 crores, so that means 25 lakhs every month, I think you'll find it difficult to sell the brand, because there won't be many takers for under 3 crores. But 3 to 10 crores, there's a lot of opportunity. Some of the buyers might not have approached you because right now they are busy buying bigger brands. The smaller buyers still haven't set up their team, or you might have slipped under their radar. But anything above 3 crores, I think it's like you can find a buyer. But
okay.
How I look at businesses, and I'm sure Chirag can add a lot of value in this, is, like I said, growing a brand from 3 crore to 6 crore doesn't require a lot of capital. So maybe if you can grow your brand from 3 crore to 6 crore in 1 year, I think you should contemplate selling at that price, because then you can get both a higher multiple as well as a much higher value. But say you are someone who just wants to sell your brand and start something new, and you are at a 3-4 crore annual revenue, like I'm sure you'll find a lot of buyers. You just need to go through the right channel. So anything above 3 crores, I think you'll have a buyer.
So again, a quick question. So which segment, so if you were to segregate it, like under 3 crore, 3 to 5 crores, 5 to 10 crores, about 10 crores, let's say, right? Which segment is hot right now? And since you've been working with a lot of aggregators already, right? So what are the mandates right now? How you, like, are you in all this spaces?
Above 10 crores is extremely hot. But
okay,
you also have to realize that there are not many brands with above 10 crores revenue. Like Chirag can give a much better idea on that. But my sense is less than 5% of all online brands have an annual revenue of more than 10 crores. So such brands are limited. And second, not everyone is interested in selling. Someone like 100 crore brand might not sell. They would like to become a 1,000 crore brand. Also, any brand that has raised venture capital won't be able to sell, because they won't get venture capital valuation when they sell to an aggregator. So
Right, right, right.
soon, my sense is very soon these 10 crore brands will get over. And then the action will move to say 5 to 10 crore brands. So
Okay.
anyone between 5 to 10 crores in a couple of months, it will be a brilliant time to sell. But Chirag, I just want your opinion on this, since you interact with brands very often.
No, I think you're bang on over there because I've been speaking to a lot of D2C founders and we've been trying to have their discussion with investors. The 3 to 10 crore bracket has really picked up like a rocket right now because there is anyways an option of scaling the brand very fast. The scaling up is anyway still pending. So other
Mm-hmm.
interest levels are very good now. Not everyone is looking at that. There are a few, you just told us, a few investors looking at the 3.3 to 5 crore bracket. Some are 5 and above, but the 3 to 10 crore bracket is now really getting good attention क्योंकि उनको scale करना easy है. The investors who acquire you also have to show to their investors
Right. So just
what
to
are the
add
scaling
on
up
to
क्या
it,
level पे लेके जाते. That's
I
super.
beg to disagree, Pushkar, with you on that 3 crores to 5 crores, let's say that band, to scaling up is easier, it doesn't require too much capital. I don't completely agree with it in the sense that, working with growth with multiple starters, right? What I've realized, specifically in D2C, is that you need really a good amount of capital to run ads. And, because see, up to about a crore and a half, let's say 2 crore ARR, it's easy because you're limited ads and all. You create a lot of, word of mouth growth and all this stuff is happening right within your circle and all it is depending on the product and category which you're selling, of course. But about 3 crores, you're talking about a large amount of money coming in every month, right? You need to spend a lot on advertisements because online works on advertisement. I mean, you have to, the giant in the room is, of course, the ads, which is sort of is killing us, then it's going expensive every day in, day out, right? And then the tech, because that's massive transactions happening and you have that the tech infrastructure is very demanding and you cannot just hire. I mean, a mean stack developer probably will cost you 1 2 lakh rupees a month. That's a lot of money in terms of revenue resources. So a shared resource would actually impact. I mean, if I had a D2C founder and I'm going to sell my brand 3 to 5 crores, I probably want to sell my brand because that is the time when I needed a good tech infrastructure. I need really good guys in terms of my performance marketing and all this stuff. And a aggregator who has the kind of infrastructure can add value to my brand as well as a couple of other brands. It's a shared cost, so the cost is not directly onto me alone. It goes to multiple brands. It's a growth marketer perspective. I'm sharing this information, right? Might be wrong. I mean, you guys can. I mean, Chirag can
No,
probably
I think
validate it.
you understand it much better. Chirag, any opinion on this?
No, no,
Scaling
I
up a
agree
3
with
crore
you.
brand?
3 to 5 crores brands have a lot of opportunity to grow because they are getting national level reach on all these marketplaces, Amazon, Flipkart, everywhere. So I think it's just a matter of time before they get acquired by someone, and someone who gives them national level reach. Then you got to also have GST registrations in all markets. You go to be in the north, west, south, east because the customer gets the product faster. Your visibility goes up. There are several of these benefits when you work with these big guys because that automatically is done in the first 2 3 months itself. So superb opportunity that way.
And one another thing which is interesting is that the sub 3 crore band, where you have a lot of. I'm sure that's 80% of the Pareto rule, right? 80% of the D2C
Yeah,
startups will be
around.
there in that band, right? I'm sure there are dimensions in that, right? And they're going to grow over a period of time, right? Uh, if I'm a D2C founder in the sub, let's say 1 crore, 2 crore range maybe, and I'm growing slowly and steadily, what is the kind of stuff which I should consider and be prepared so that in the due diligence time frame, because I know due diligence is the major pain in the wrong places. To get funding or to get acquired, right? I've seen it again and again, auditing again and again onto that, right? So how do we prepare yourself? Is there have you written a post around it? I mean, I'm sorry if I'm reiterating, if you already done that earlier.
No, I
Uh,
don't think I have, but I'll try to write one. But there's one advice I can give to all D2C founders. No matter what stage you are at, please start maintaining a good MIS. Because
okay,
what we have seen is most founders, even the smartest ones, don't exactly know what the EBITDA is. So sometimes we have heard, like, both while raising venture capital as well as while selling a brand to an aggregator, the founder might say my EBITDA is 14-15%. And then it comes out to a 10% in due diligence. And then the
right, right.
aggregator might back down, or you'll get a much lower value, which just disappoints everyone. And why this
Oh,
happens is because most founders are so busy selling their stuff and growing that business that they ignore maintaining a good MIS. So on the revenue side, I think everyone is fine because you broadly know how much you sell every month. But what are your unit cost economics? What are your top selling brands? How much money you're making at each product at unit level? And also what's your EBITDA? So what's your gross margin? So we have seen most founders not really up to date on this. So this is one advice I'll give to any founder that, hey, if you're interested in selling a brand right now or after 6 months, even after a year, it would help a lot that if you start maintaining a really good MIS, maybe we can post a sample on a LinkedIn page so that you can just download it and then that would give you some idea.
So, okay, so a LinkedIn post or a Medium post would be great, Pushkar. That apart, I mean, that is very overview, right? So if a company wants to, like, I know because I'm also simultaneously doing some tinkering around with a couple of ideas and working on some startups, right? I mean, the KIDA, which Chirag mentioned, right? We all have it. So if I have to vet it, how do I do that? Is there a way where can like probably send it to an expert and look an overview and say, hey, this is wrong and you need to rework onto it, or this is okay for the time being, or this could be made better, or something like that, and also tell me, is there a scope at all? Is this an option at all in my plate, even if I were to scale up to 3 crores? So is it possible like that anywhere? Like those tax investment calculator online, or send it to you, or whatever it is.
So now you mentioned it, I think we can do that. So good idea would be, say, anyone who's interested in selling the brand can just drop us an email at a
Okay,
company email ID,
okay,
and then we can send them a format like a basic MIS so that they can just fill in their numbers and sell that back to us. We
all
can do
right.
a quick assessment, tell them, hey guys, you are ready to sell. There's the value you can expect. There's the best buyer for you, and then you can take it forward from there. We can do that,
Wow.
but then just send us an email saying, hey, this is my brand. We'll send you the MIS or an Excel file saying, hey, please fill that. And then with numbers, we can give you much precise estimation of what you can
We are
expect.
at about
Who's the
70, 80
value?
people coming in and coming out, Pushkar. I think you are just asking for something. But anyway, that's very kind of you, man. Like
So
if you can look into
stay,
it.
stay
No,
prepared
so
for
we
a
can't do
flood
it
of.
on day zero. We'll take our time. But yeah, we'll do it. We'll get back to everyone, surely.
Chirag, you will say something.
No, I'm saying stay prepared for a flood of emails now.
Yeah,
This is
I know.
going.
And this is being live streamed. And plus, you're going to share the recording as well to about 200 odd people, right? Who haven't been able to make it. So, you are
So
definitely doomed, man, with emails.
I'll just put our email address in the chat.
Okay.
And there's one question I would just like to answer because I think two people asked it. That what if you want to sell your 100% brand on day zero? Is that
Okay.
possible? So I think selling 100% on day zero is not possible because most aggregators and buyers would expect you to hand over the brand
Correct.
Hmm.
because you know the suppliers, you know the logistics, you know the warehousing, you'll have to hand over. So that takes some time, but
Right.
maybe a 9 month window is possible. So how it can work is you sell 80% upfront or even 85%, and then you get remaining 15% after 1 year, and you make
Right.
an exit in 9 months. So you,
So
especially for a
Pushkar,
smaller brand, like if you know 5 crore brand,
so Pushkar,
Chirag, sorry, go ahead.
for the 9 months or the 12 months, the founder will be drawing a salary from the investor, right?
That's correct. So all founders get a salary, an advisory fee from the investor. This could range from say 20 lakhs to a crore, depending
Wow.
upon how big the brand is. But it's a market salary. So don't worry on that. They'll pay
Wow.
you a good salary.
That's nice. Wow. That's awesome. I think I should start a
And
D2C company soon.
so the advantage is you are getting a salary, you're also growing your brand, and then you're getting your money at a higher value.
With
Because then
15%?
the remaining 20% will evaluate the revenue after 1 year.
Oh,
So I
nice.
think it's a win-win scenario for a founder. If you're looking for a quick exit, if you don't think your brand can become a 100 crore brand, but you want a quick exit and start something new, you can enter maybe a 1 year deal, 1 year contract. That can also work.
Dhruvo, very kind words, man. Thank you. I mean, I've been trying to catch up with the chat as much as possible, right? And a lot of people are asking on the revenue bit again, Pushkar. I guess we need to do something on this calculation bit later on because we are running out of time. We just have 10 minutes on the blog session. We can actually go a little if you guys are free, right, Chirag, Pushkar? We can probably push it a bit more. Otherwise, so a quick reset is that we are done with the conversation. There are a lot many points I had in my mind to ask, and there are a lot of questions. I guess somewhere around 20, 30
We
questions
can just
coming
take
up.
a few questions, Doulos.
Yeah, we'll take the questions now, right? and maybe have some more questions I had in my mind. Probably you can do that. Any pick, Pushkar, Chirag, it's your choice, man. You guys are the conversationalists,
I
right?
would just like to answer one because that Chirag can also add his bit. So
Right.
people ask what kind of operational control do you get when you sell
Yeah.
your brand to a
Very
aggregator?
emotional point. Yeah.
So you have to realize that eventually you'll have to sell out the brand. So if you're really attached to a brand and if you want to grow it yourself, I don't think aggregator is the right avenue for you. But while you're involved with the business, so say your handover period is 2 years or 3 years, depending upon what kind of contract you sign with the aggregator. And most aggregators would love for the founder to be attached for a longer time because founders knows the brand best. So if some founders say, hey, I am fine selling my brand only 51% right now, and then I can be with you for 3 years to grow the brand, they'll give you a lot of operational freedom because they have a big team to support your brand, but no one knows a brand like the founder, the brand philosophy, the brand values. So the operational freedom you'll get with an aggregator is immense. Of course, it will vary from aggregator to aggregator, brand to brand. You won't have a carte blanche that you can't spend 10 crores on marketing. Of course, you'll have to take permission. You'll have to get it approved from the aggregator. But pretty much everything else, how do you want to, which sellers you want to tie up to, which suppliers, what kind of products you want to launch, they give you a lot of freedom. But Chirag, what do you think?
So
As a
I
brand owner,
think
what kind of freedom would you want?
so. Here's some inside information. There are a few sellers who've sold their brands recently, and I've been in touch with them because I know the founders very well. What they're saying is mostly all these aggregators and investors are also setting up their teams right now. They are also, it's a fairly new business overall. So they are right now, while on paper they are the owners of the company and the brand, but they are right now giving a lot of operational freedom to the founders to take it to the next level, at least for the next 2 3 years, because they themselves are setting themselves up. So it's a mixed bag right now, but there is good enough, at least for the next 2 years, 3 years, you can have good enough operational control and work. And post that, you can exit based on the terms you've agreed on.
Right. There's one more question someone asked about non-compete, like you have to sign a non-compete. So yes, you need to sign a non-compete with the seller, with the buyer. Non-compete means you can't start something, a new brand in that category. But what we have seen is a lot of these D2C owners, sometimes they also have a small manufacturing unit. Say, for example, if you're selling dumbbells online, you also have a small factory where you manufacture dumbbells. Similarly with leather bags. So what happens in a brand sale is you sell the brand, but you keep your manufacturing unit. So you can continue to produce and become a vendor. And then there is no cap on that. That's so most aggregators are fine being letting you being the manufacturer as long as you tell them, all right, I'm not going to start a similar brand, a new brand in the similar category. And this agreement is usually for 5 years.
And it's also like, we cannot sell it to someone else, only the brand itself. There is no restriction like that, right?
No, there's no restriction. Of course, you'll need to negotiate that. But
Right.
so we are negotiating a deal where the seller also has a small manufacturing unit and he
Mm-hmm.
wants to get big time into manufacturing now. He doesn't want to create a brand. So he owns a fitness brand. So that's what we are negotiating with the buyer. And I think how it will work out is buyer will be fine telling, hey, you're free to do as much manufacturing as you want,
Mm-hmm.
but please sign a contract with me that you'll keep supplying to the brand I acquire. Say,
Right.
for example, like I'm an aggregator. I acquired Chirag's brand MBOSS. Now, Chirag also has a manufacturing unit where he supplies to MBOSS. Now, I don't want a scenario where after 2 years, Chirag stops supplying to me, to the
Right.
original brand. So
Right. Right.
usually buyers would like to sign an agreement saying, hey, at least for 3 4 years, you keep supplying to us, give them some time to find alternate suppliers, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're pretty much left to do as much manufacturing as you want. They'll be more
Mm-hmm.
happy if you become a manufacturer because
Mm-hmm.
then you can suggest them on new products. It's easier to manufacture in India than getting it from China. So there are multiple advantages of being a manufacturer once you have sold a brand.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, actually. Uh, Makes a lot of sense. To that. Just two quick questions which came in the chat, which I think we can just quickly wave it off, right? For example, asking the figures like 3 crores, 5 crores we're discussing, right? That is monthly or annual, somebody asked. It's annual revenue, right? ARR. So this is the annual income, right? So that is
And
one aspect of,
So if
and
it's monthly
somebody,
also you can sell. It's no harm in having a 5 crore monthly revenue.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
sure
don't know.
you would have sold by now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether you would want to sell it at 5 crore monthly revenue, 10 crore monthly revenue, right? And if you have a strong EBITDA, then why would you want to sell? I probably would look for this thing. See, and another question was that does Instagram direct website, first cry, etc. also factor in, or is it just Amazon and nothing else for the online business? I guess Instagram direct website, first cry, any portal, Snapdeal, even Reddit,
Right,
if
right.
it's
Any portal, it just need to be
yeah,
online.
just online,
It's
and
just
makes
that
sense that.
Amazon is the biggest e-commerce platform in
Right.
India. But if you're
Mhm.
even if you're selling through your own website, that's totally fine, or Instagram, as long as
Right,
you're
right,
selling it online.
right,
Because
right.
the idea for these buyers is to grow the online brand, not the offline bit. It's more difficult to scale up an offline bit. It also requires more
Mhm.
capital. So everyone is
And
focusing on the online segment.
I've seen a lot of companies, D2C companies. Like for example, recently I adopted a dog, and we were looking for a good shampoo, right? And I found this extremely expensive shampoo online. They sell it directly on the website or on Instagram. And Amazon, you'll find only couple of videos just for the presence they are there. Just for the branding
That's
purposes,
correct.
I said. Maybe because of the kind of margins which Amazon or Flipkart or one of those giants carry, take away from them, or inventory problems or logistical issues. But they have a huge percent. They are very expensive. I'm sure their EBITDA will be like really up the roof. And they're making a lot of money for sure, and they're good products. So I mean, no complaints on that paying that money, right? Right. So any other questions which is interesting enough to take it, folks?
There is one interesting question. Someone's asking, can we separate the online business and keep the offline with us? So it is possible if you have two different companies, one under online and one under offline. But then eventually, if you're selling the same brand, you're selling all the brand rights. So you just can't sell the brand rights to sell it on the online channel. So for example, say if you have an offline store where you sell 10 brands or maybe 2 or 3 brands, whereas on the online channel, 90% of the revenue comes from one brand. So you can just decide to sell that brand, keep the remaining brands and the offline business with you. That's possible. You need some structuring help, how to structure the transaction, but you can't keep the offline rights of a brand and sell only the online rights. Currently, that's not possible. None of the aggregators would agree to that because effectively what they're buying is the brand. So they just can't let you own half of the brand.
Right. There's a direct message to me from Praveen. Discord is better than Slack. We will consider that, but Discord is very complicated for most people to understand. So just responding that over here. Pushkar, have you shared the email address where people can send their MIS or the data
So
and get
I'll just
validation?
write down in the chat. It's
Right.
pushkar@tremis.in.
Oh, you're giving a post. Awesome, great. You're doing, man. Chirag, you want to say something?
So there is a question I just saw about whether we look at GMV or we look at the net delivered. I think Jay Thakur asked that. GMV is not considered by most of these investors. What they're looking at actually is EBITDA and your delivered revenue on the P&L. So when you're selling to these ratio investors, EBITDA is the key. So GMV, low or delivered revenue, it doesn't matter. Profit, EBITDA, kya kar rahe ho, that is the key to look at. So sit
Wi-
down with your CAs, understand what is EBITDA, how it's calculated, and try and calculate it for the last 2-3 years. Because when I also did that exercise for my brand, it was an eye opener. It's completely different from what we look at in terms of GMV and everything.
I
So
can completely
for
relate to that.
anyone who wants to sell their brand, sit down with your CA, understand your EBITDA of the last 3-4 years. That itself will give you a good idea of where you can reach with all this.
Right, I can understand that. And recently I worked with a startup where the gross margin was expected to be 35%, like over the roof. And then when you calculate over the last 6 months, we figured out the gross margin is 0%. And you're like, what the hell? What's happening? Anyway, sorry, it's no swearing words, right? Uh,
Now, Doulos, would you just like to wrap up and say how they can reach us? What's
yeah,
the
I
way?
wanted to do that. No more questions. You're not taking any more questions, right, folks?
I
Anything
think
which you
we
want
are
to?
running short of time, yeah. It's already one.
Right,
I have
right.
something at one.
Oh,
So we
is it?
can just
I'm so
wrap up
sorry.
and say,
So thank you very much, Pushkar. Thank you very much, Chirag, for your time and for your insightful thoughts. And we have some amazing questions. If there is any more questions to be done, please, upload it over here. Just type it over here, and I will consolidate it and I will share it with the speakers and get a response, and we'll publish it on Tremis Capital page. So you can go to the Tremis Capital LinkedIn page and you can check out, and it will come up in a couple of days, right? One last question, Pushkar, which everyone is asking, or at least 2 or 3 people are asking, what does the Tremis charge, or what is in it for Tremis? You want to say what is in it for Tremis?
So we usually take a percentage of, so when we sign a mandate with a brand, we take them to multiple sellers, help them evaluate different, we take them to multiple buyers, help them evaluate different buyers, try to work out the best structure for them, help them in creating an MIS, and then we charge a percentage of whatever money they get. So
So
whatever is the
basically,
final consideration, we take a success fee out of that.
so it's in your best interest to sell it at a higher price, is it?
Right, exactly. So our idea is to align our objectives. So the better price we can get to the seller, the more money we make. But just one final thing I would like to say, we are slightly selective because we are getting a lot of brand requests. So say if you approach us and we say no, because it doesn't mean we are not interested. It just means we are super tied up. So maybe we can help you a bit later. That's just
Right, right,
one
right.
thing I just want to say.
Right. Interesting. All right. So, folks, once again, thank you very much for joining in today. Right. I think we have to wrap it up. I'm sure a lot of you have commitments otherwise as well to attend to. Right. So, as we discussed earlier in the initial stages, that we have recorded this. Yeah, we have recorded it. Yeah, it's a slow recording. So yeah, I just double confirmed. We have recorded it, and we will get it. Send it across to you the link if you would like to, revisit the session. If you have missed out something, the questions we have received in the chat, we will save it, and we will try to address almost just probably categorize it, and all the questions we'll bring it on the one banner and address it. Slightly structures that you don't have to go through a lengthy document, and publish it in a couple of days. And you'll find both these things under Tremis Capital page, right? That is where you can find this information. Go follow the page, and go follow the speakers, Chirag and Pushkar. I guess they are fairly open on LinkedIn. They accept your connection request, or they would be more than happy to chat with you, right? Although of course, depending on the volume, I'm sure. And yeah, Pushkar has gracefully agreed to check your vitals, which I am not sure why Pushkar agreed in the first place, because that is
You
inviting
forced me, Doulos. You asked me to do that.
I never said anything like that. I just asked, what to
You
do
put me
it,
into
how
a
to do
trap.
it. Yeah, so now you're trapped, right? So pushkar@tremis.in
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
we'll do
email
that.
ID,
Our
right? So
pleasure.
just send it information, and probably they will categorize it. In fact, Pushkar, you should have a generic email ID for this so that others can also join in, and other folks in your organization can join and do it. It not
We'll
wouldn't
post
be a
it on a
solely.
page, LinkedIn page.
Yeah. Yeah. So just post a generic email ID. You can send in your details, you have any queries and all those stuff, and we will surely consider setting up a Slack community or a Discord community, whatever works. But for all these updates, Tremis Capital page would be the right place to do, right? So yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun. Thanks. I hope it was
And
not boring like a webinar. Thank you, Pushkar. Thank you, Chirag. Thank you for all who have joined in, and thank you for people who haven't joined in but would still check out the recording, right? And do share with your friends, and we will hope to see you soon.
bye.
Okay.